would you guys define exotic flower? Because look, there is so many different like terms, and I know it's usually just used as a spice word, like here and there, but like how do you really go and find, like a first batch, like this is the first phenotype, first drop, like this is the freshest you're gonna get it? Like how do you go about, like what do you consider that like an exotic? How do you go about finding those exotics? Because for me, it's just been Instagram.
Chris is number one in the exotic weed over here. Let me tell you. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, it's used as a hype word. I mean, I know speaking kind of in the cultivation side of things, it's like people use it in their titles and thumbnails. They'll list it up just to get clicks. You know what I mean? But what is it really? I mean, you're asking a great question. Like, is it actually anything different than normal stuff? I don't think so, right? It's like there's no really way of saying that that's different than other stuff.
Well, if you look at like small batch, craft based. So if, let's say you're getting one that, a prime example, again, we'll use Franklin Fields since coincidentally we're in the hat. So you go in their garden and you'll look at one side of the room looks like small ass little buds, and the other side is these fucking monsters. Well, the monsters seemingly sell like crazy, but these little buds over here are super dank. I mean, crazy dank, but supply and demand don't match. So that small batch that is extremely like rare, so to speak, because you're not going to see it as often, I'd put that more under the exotic side, because it's like, you won't see this often. This is a rare one to have. It's like having a rare thing of scotch that you've had from like way back in the day, as where like what you can see everywhere. I don't care if everybody has the same purple weed. It's like, it's not rare. It's not exotic at all. It's normal. This is the regular shit that everybody has. I'm seeing the same stuff everywhere. Nothing unique. Everything's purplish. Everything's covered in trichomes. Problem is once you crack it open, it's flat as a 1980s ass, just nothing there. So like my frustration comes where the container is like this with a little pivot in there. You could squeeze the sides and kind of get a smell. You don't really know. Like I need to crack it open a little bit, even with stuff I've harvested and it sat there for a minute. Shake the jar up a little bit. Sometimes I'll crack a nug and
a little bit of the.
Yeah, you can't really do that. Certain places that can open the containers and waft it at you, or they have a sea vault or something like that. That helps, but otherwise you don't know based on look ever. So it's so hard with a lot of these dispos. It's like never had the food, but everybody says it's great based on what? Because the burger's presented well.
Yeah, like the cherry poppers, right? The like the super dope that did the collaboration with like Fear of Booth, and then eventually they found somewhere in Michigan to like grow this genetic. Like obviously it's gonna be so different from where it was, but like they peg it as exotic because they're like, okay, it came from California, therefore exotic. And it could be we smoked it and like the terps were kind of shit. It's been in the bag for over like 3 months, and it was just like, as far as like exotic, I feel like as the industry has like kind of grown and people are realizing that like the exotic is more used as a hype word, it's almost taken on like, okay, the small batch that was like grown by the original breeder that's like pretty much only given out to like a weird secret drop on Instagram. Because like as an average consumer, I was so tired of having to go to dispensaries and but I still wanted to get some of the fun stuff that I kept hearing about, like the cherry poppers. I'm like, damn, like I want to try that. And so how would you go about, like even with Franklin Fields, like obtaining that like first grown batch? Like how do you learn that? Is it just by like following the growers on Instagram? Like do you like how do you go about finding like those exotics, so to say, like small batch grows? Do they just throw it away? Do they give it out? What do they do?
Well, this should be a situation I think about more on the dispensary side, because like, I mean, in their side, they've got botanical company too. So they're able to control display, which we're working on something with them where we'll have like a CLTV stamp of approval of dankness, because not everybody agrees with everything, so to speak. But like in a case of knowing what comes first and what's fresh, I think in the home grower world, we're actually looking at what's been cured longer and what's been grown and dried longer. So it's hard, but from the consumer side of things, it's what's been packaged, the least amount of time sitting, so to speak. So it's like if the dispensary with shelf shit has like fresh batches, boom, this is a fresh batch shelf. This one's a little bit older, so it's cheaper. The longer it's sat here, the cheaper it is. And then that consciously the consumer makes the decision that they're going to get the lower cost batch. I mean, I've known people for years back in the street days, will say, who will get the brick over some decent mid, or will, instead of getting the good quality chronic, they'll find some outdoor shit. And I'm like, okay, but it was cheap. I got 2 ounces for this. I'm like, all right,
Like,
whatever.
okay.
If you're happy.
Yeah.
This FTS clip was brought to you by AC Infinity, leaders in garden innovation. Use discount code TheStash15 at checkout to save some money on your order.
From the Stash Podcast.